All right, moving on here. How do we actually hit the ball harder? What is in our control? I break it down into two big steps. Gain weight and strength, and then transfer that strength into rotational velocity. Step one, gaining weight and strength, your body weight being 2.5 to 3 times your height in inches, squatting 1.5 times your body weight, deadlifting 2 times your body weight, split squatting 1 times your body weight or more, dumbbell pressing 70 pounds or more, doing a chin up for 250 pounds with a total load, so that's including your body weight. If you were 200 pounds, you'd have a 50-pound dumbbell strapped onto you. So the easiest and most proven way to get there is going to be progressive overload. Lifting a little more weight each set, each week, over time. It's simple. It works, and it builds the foundation that we need. So then from there, we're trying to transfer this into rotational velocity. So the strength is great, but our sport is rotational, so we have to turn that weight room power into bat speed. So we do that with underload, overload training. Bats are going to be about 20% lighter, heavier than your game bat, ideally, to train the capacity to rotate faster. From my experience in research, weighted bats with a sensor, you want to be above 68 miles per hour of bat speed. That's a little bit below MLB average. And you're looking to throw medicine balls over 30 feet or 35 miles per hour that weigh about 4 to 8 pounds. Those are solid benchmarks to generally aim for, but we could create more tailored programs directly to individuals. And that's going to be based on their specific needs. Do they need to move things faster? Do they need to move things more efficiently? If you want a heavier implement, it's going to help you move more efficiently. But if this player's already very strong and you want them to move faster, you would give them a lighter implement. This is where bat sensors, so blast motion and diamond kinetics, become so essential. They let us track our output, so are we actually swinging faster, and also our fatigue. When do we need to pull back? When do we need to stop swinging? Because if we're taking tired reps, then those aren't really reps that we want to be taking. So without that feedback, we're just guessing. Hitting the ball in the air. So strength and speed are half the battle. The other half is going to be actually making contact with the ball in a way that's going to produce the right ball flight, the ball flight that we're looking for. So recent StatCast bat tracking data shows that ideal attack angles are going to help you hit the ball in the air, and contact point is going to be a big part of that. So you can have the perfect attack angle and you're still top spinning a ground ball if you're hitting the top part of the baseball. That's why it's a little bit flawed. And nothing's perfect in baseball, especially this realm and in this age. There's a lot of variables that go into play. But our window for perfect contact is going to be about a few inches wide. And I know most people think that it's like you can drop the bat in from behind you and keep it in the zone. And if it's always on the up, you can have this huge window for contact. You can meet it deep and hit it the other way, meet it out front and hit it to the pull side. I thought the same thing as a player. But in reality, using the bat tracking data, your ideal contact window is only going to be a few inches long. Now, in the grand scheme of things, a few inches is only a millisecond of time when a pitch is coming in. So, yes, you can hit the ball in the air with a non-ideal attack angle, but it's usually because you've clipped the bottom part of the ball, which is going to add backspin, and you're going to lose out power. Sometimes it's called clipping the ball, other times it's called ballooning. Ultimately, you're not meeting the ball squarely and transferring that bat speed into the ball efficiently. So, reality check, bat speed increases the value of your contact, but it also tends to reduce how often you square it up and how often you make contact. That's why we have trained all the variables: tilt, vertical bat angle, time to contact, swing length, not just raw bat speed. And yes, context matters. The game situation, the pitcher, how you feel that day. But if we're taking pure skill-based metrics, these things we know we can train and we can get better at. So squaring the ball up consistently is still one of the hardest, least trainable skills in baseball, but gaining strength, improving rotational velocity, and learning to make contact in an ideal window are all things that we can train, we can measure, and will make us more valuable hitters in the box. So something to keep in mind with bat speed training is that for an advanced player, you're usually only looking at marginal gains. 1 mile per hour of bat speed is going to be average improvement once you already hit at a high level per year. So for younger guys, especially those who've never trained bat speed before, the gains can be much higher. They can be 4, 5, 6, even 10 mile per hour jumps if you add muscle and you train properly. That's why we want to take advantage of this early on, because you'll see in this chart, the older that you get, the harder it is to swing faster. And that's just the aging curve. Same as sprint speed, same as strength, like everything trends down over the course of time. Now, even 1 extra mile per hour of bat speed is going to be worth about 1.2 miles per hour of exit velocity, which is going to be 7 feet of distance on the ball. So that's within your control. Now, something like pitch speed is going to be 1 foot of distance per mile per hour. So if a pitcher's throwing 80 and you have the same squared up, the same bat speed, and then the pitcher's throwing 90 and you have the same squared up and same bat speed as that, it's going to go 10 feet further. So one of my favorite coaches to follow on Instagram is Bill Miller. He has a Patreon account now where he posts really good in-depth breakdowns of what's going on from a human performance standpoint, but he really hammers home that recovery is going to drive performance. So your rest, fatigue, stress, and nutrition are all going to influence your bat speed, your readiness for the day, your mental focus at the plate. And sleep is the only proven recovery method for your central nervous system and your ability to produce force. Nutrition is going to play a huge role too. Hitting your macros, maintaining or gaining lean muscle mass, and fueling your body properly is going to make a big difference over the long term. Now, another factors most players overlook is the quality of tools that we're using. So beat-up baseballs can reduce exit velocities by almost 10 miles per hour compared to a brand new MLB Pro. That's the coefficient of restitution, which is basically how bouncy the ball is. High school balls won't fly as far as MLB balls, just like a golf ball or a lacrosse ball will absolutely jump off the bat because they have a higher coefficient of restitution. Now, the mass of the bat and where that weight is distributed can also influence your bat speed and your exit velocity, but we'll break that down a little bit later. So some quick benchmarks we're looking at is bat speed for the pros is about 68 to 72 miles per hour, college is about 64 to 68, and high school is going to be in the upper 50s, low 60s. So with the new StatCast swing length, this is kind of what we're using time to contact data on with Blast, and we're seeing a pattern here. So the shorter swings with elite bat speed, like Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bobby Witt Jr., are among the most dynamic hitters in baseball. Now players with the high bat speed but long swings like Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, O'Neal Cruz are all going to have huge power potential, but they're going to swing and miss a lot more. So players with the super short swings and slower swings like Luis Arraez or Stephen Kwan are elite bat to ball making contact, but they don't hit for much power. Jake Gallagher does a really good job summing up kind of what Teacher Man talks about and takes to an extreme, which is being super quick and short to the ball. So training bat speed is about finding your balance, maximizing the speed that you can produce while keeping your swing short enough to make consistent contact. The earlier you start, the bigger the gains, and every single mile per hour that you can add is going to pay off an extra distance and more damage on contact, if you can keep your swing short. So on this slide, I've attached a driveline chart that really brings home what we've just been talking about. So looking at that purple group and the gray group just under the orange, we're going to see the group that holds the best combination of numbers, the highest WOBA, the lowest whiff rate, still strong barrel percentage, and still solid batting average and ISO. So what does that all say? The players with the short, controlled swings and enough bat speed are producing a balance of contact quality and damage. Now this isn't everybody, but the slow swingers, short path guys, are making a ton of contact and not doing as much damage. And the ultra fast swingers are doing a ton of damage, but they're swinging and missing more. Warren Spahn said it best, hitting is timing and pitching is disrupting timing. So the ultimate goal of the hitter is to square the baseball up. So in my opinion, the best StatCast metric to measure timing is going to be squared up percentage. And here's why. It measures how much of the bat speed actually transferred into the exit velocity, and it shows you how often you hit the ball flush on the barrel. So given the same player, same swing, better timing is going to be better barrel contact. Yes, hand-eye coordination is going to play a role, but in the game, being on time is going to be the biggest separator here. This is kind of like the golden egg of hitting because everybody wants to know how to square the ball up more or make more contact in the zone, but it's really something that's somewhat untrainable unless we're able to create a feedback loop for the players to lock into. Now, if you think about it, the guys with slower swings are often squaring the ball up more often because it's easier to control. The guys with the fast swings are not as on time as often, but when they do become on time, it's loud. So think about the teammate who could hit the ball 450 feet but almost never made contact. That's what we're talking about here. How to read squared up percentage with or without tech. We can track this manually. We watch the hitter, we grade the quality of contact, and then create our own guidelines to keep it consistent. Did I hit it in the air? Did I hit it to this part of the field? How hard did I hit it? And we can create a feedback loop for the player internally to measure whether they're squaring the ball up or not. If you do have technology, it gets a lot more objective. You take the bat speed, you multiply that by 1.2 to find the potential exit velocity, and then you would multiply the pitch speed by 0.2. You would add those two things together, and you'd be able to compare that to what the exit velocity potential was versus the actual exit velocity. So for example, bat speed 70 miles per hour, pitch speed 90 miles per hour, the potential EV is going to be 102. If they hit the ball at 100, they squared it up pretty well. If they hit it on the ground, that could be more based on contact point, which is why technology can become so useful for us. So we could say, hey man, you squared that up really well, you actually just hit it on the ground, you were still in your downswing. And that could mean a ton of different things. Do we cut across our body? Are we lunging forward and we're kind of hitting that ball right into the ground? Or did I not square it up and I hit it on the ground and I just kind of hit the top part of the ball? That's where all of this thing these things kind of come to play and they all start to matter together. So the technology is just making this easier to quantify for us. So whatever your method, verify your data. If you're going to be tracking it manually, pair it up with feedback from the hitter. Hey, did you square that up? Use video if possible. If data, awesome. Continue to verify it with the player so they get a feel and understanding for what they're trying to do. If a player hits a 103 mile per hour fly ball at 40 degrees to center field and it dies on the warning track, maybe it's not squared up. Maybe they just mishit it and this player has massive raw potential and they clipped it. Now the conversation shifts from what were my mechanics to what was my approach. Like, hey, you just missed that ball. Where are you trying to hit it? Oh, well, I was actually trying to hit the bottom part of the ball. It's like, hey, man, like try to hit the top part of the ball. Now that ball becomes more clean, efficient ball flight, and you're hitting the ball harder, you're squaring it up better. So this is where timing, contact point, and swing plane are all going to kind of connect into one. If you can teach a player to recognize why the ball came off the way that it did, you're not just finding a swing, you're building a hitter who can self-adjust, and that's what we want to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about the force velocity curve and training profiles. So why this matters. It could be really granular here and get into the nitty-gritty stuff of the weight room programming, but the best framework that I've come across is this, and Bill Miller does a really good job explaining this, and that's the force velocity curve. But the concept has started gaining traction recently. I think it's one of the most useful ways to really think about training baseball athletes specifically. So the curve is basically going to help us understand where a player lives in terms of two qualities: force, how much strength can they produce, and velocity, how fast can they actually move. Now when you map these two things out, you generally see some archetypes. Strong but slow, so they're great at producing force, but they don't move quickly. Fast but weak, they're quick movers, quick twitch, but there's not much raw strength behind it. Or they're somewhere in the middle, decent at both, but they're not really maximizing either. So the big question then becomes, where is this player now, and where do we want them to be? I think the old way of putting players into rigid buckets is a little bit outdated, and this is a way to individualize it, but we're using a specific roadmap with objective data. So the goal is to identify their profile and then use training to move them towards a more balanced point where they can produce both high force and high velocity. So from here, we can train force dominant players to move faster without losing strength, train velocity dominant players to get stronger without losing their quickness, and layer in movement capacity along with this, like mobility, stability, rotation, to support both sides. So it's not so much about labeling players, one thing forever, it's about using the data and observing them to set the right end goal and progressively shifting them towards the middle of the curve, at least utilizing both sides of it.